Welcome back to the conversation on the Diplomacy Next. I am being joined by my guest for the today's conversation. It's Miss Preeti Sharma, and she's an assistant professor at the Central University of Gujarat. And her specific area of interest, putting it in the in this conversation as an introduction. The areas are India and its neighborhood and border issues. Apart from that, she's also writing on climate and sustainable development. But for the today's conversation, we'll be talking about the developments in the South China Sea. We'll be talking about G20. We'll be talking about the Indo-Pacific. And we'll also be touching upon certain aspects of India and the G20. First of all, I'd like to welcome the guest on the podcast. Welcome, Preeti ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Mehrajji.
So kindly draw us an overview of the entire things that are actually happening in South China Sea. If we talk about the contemporary geopolitical developments in the entire South China Sea, that having been said, after that we'll do a follow-up and we'll take this conversation, try to take this conversation to the Indo-Pacific. The podium is entirely yours. You can start now.
Thank you. As we have this topic on the South China Sea and the Indo-Pacific and G20 and India. We are trying to connect the bonds between these various issues. And actually, there are incidents in geopolitical incidents which we are trying to jot down here in this conversation. So first of all, I would like to talk about the South China Sea. What is the situation of South China Sea? Actually, South China Sea is it's a type of geopolitical. It has a geopolitical status around few countries like. In the south of China, in the east of Vietnam, in the west of Philippines and Taiwan, and in the north of Brunei, and so this is how there are, and South Timor. So these countries are the stakeholders of this region. And secondly, Taiwan and China, they are having their concerns in this, and they are claiming this region around the 9-dash line. Which is having the control of the shores of Vietnam, shores of Malaysia, and the shores of other countries in the eastern part of South China Sea. So this is how it is a connecting link between the West Pacific and the Indo-Pacific region, and it is there are so many stakeholders. And today, what we do see that we are counting India also as a stakeholder in this region. So that is a matter of discussion in this conversation. How India, being the part of a very prominent presidency of today in 2023, what it will be seeking in this region, and what sort of means results it is trying to present before the countries. So actually, South China Sea has it has some maritime and some, you can see some warhead developments, and it is having the multilateral disputes in this region. And here China is developing its artificial islands, and more than 1,000 artificial islands have been developed in this region, and it has deployed its military equipments, and it has also claimed the areas of this region around the 9-dash line. And this is how we also see that there are some disputed areas like the you can see that the around the Vietnam, the Parcel Islands also, and the Spratly Islands. So these islands, they are means China is claiming these islands because of this region's you can see this region's importance. And what are the importance of this region? Rich biodiversity and rich natural resources are available there. And these claims are behind these profits which China is hoping for. So this is how China is trying to establish itself as a hegemon in this region. And through these artificial islands, through the control on EEZ, economic zone of this region, and of these islands, as well as through the military surveillance, through the infrastructural development in this region. China is trying to control this entire region and trying to prove itself as a hegemon. So that other countries, just because of that, other countries are trying to find out some new methods of resolve.
Thanks for the outline of this entire South China Sea area. And when we talk about China's belligerence, China's expansionist policies, and apart from that, China's uh, going against the UN clause and laws of sea and maritime things. Where do you see the current status of the entire South China Sea? What has happened? What's the news for the scholars and the students, and apart from that, all the audience that we have? What's happening in the China Sea? Are there any geopolitical developments when we talk about South China Sea?
Yes, I've already told you that apart from international law and the UN clause, China is still extending its areas in this region, and it is trying to extend its clause in this region through the island island artificial island policy, as well as military equipments, as well as the military base establishment. And one more thing, that before few days, Taiwan was also testing its missiles, and China has also established its missiles, deployed its missiles, anti-ballistic missiles in this region. So this is how these countries, the stakeholders of these countries, they protested against Taiwan and China both, that they should not, Taiwan should not test its missiles and test its arms in the Spratly Islands. And on the other side, China has to leave thinking of this area, because there are so many stakeholders, and these issues are to be resolved through the multilateral talks, whereas China wanted to resolve through the bilateral talks. So this is a difference which these countries are they are seeing, and they are observing in this region, so that how ASEAN countries and how Indo-Pacific group and how G20 group, they are trying to find out the resolve. And on the other side, the United States is also taking interest in this region because of its biodiversity and varied, you can say, resources. So this is how this region has got the attraction of the geopolitical shift. And to establish the balance of power, many powers are taking interest in this region.
You have brought in a very interesting thing when it comes to Taiwan, when it comes to the ASEAN countries, and also the countries that are a part of the larger Indo-Pacific grouping, and we talk about G20 and other things. Let's for a while talk about how US has it been able to kind of put a pressure on China through the different multilateral and global forums in order to bring China to the table and talk about it, that no, this is the belligerence that won't be tolerated at the global level, and this is a thing that's going against the global maritime trade, and it will affect the global economy at the end of the day. Where do you see US influencing the entire South China Sea area?
Actually, US has its own role in geopolitical issues, and it has its own national interests. It is not there for any resolve. It tries to establish itself, because as we know that this region has the direct connect with Pacific Ocean, and United States also see its benefits in this region because of its richness of resources and biodiversity. So this is how United States has actually never tried to resolve the issues between the countries, but it is trying to pressurize the Chinese stand in this region, and United States is trying to provoke other stakeholders, and it is on the verge of balance of power. It is trying to threaten China, that if it is looking into this region, then definitely it will be taken as the threat to the freedom of navigation, and threat to the threat to the free movement, and free, you can say, means transportation. So this is how United States is, as it used to work in every sector and every area of every regional issue. So United States is doing this way.
When we talk about the South China Sea and the discourse that has led to the larger Indo-Pacific networking and the challenge that China poses to the global security and to the global geopolitical security, and when we talk about the maritime security as well, where do you see the Indo-Pacific, and Japan has come up with a new strategy and its refreshed look at the entire Indo-Pacific spectrum and understanding of things. And when we talk about Japan's new strategy, when we talk about US pushing hard to deter China in one or the other way to not violate the global international rules of maritime trade and global political economy, where do you see the larger Indo-Pacific groupings going? Is there any impact? Is there any influence that it's creating? Or China isn't worried about the entire things, that it doesn't bother about the global forums, it doesn't bother about the geopolitical and global political economy that it's also a part of. It's well integrated into global economy, it's well integrated into the entire maritime trade. But China isn't bothered, seems not to be bothered by the entire grouping and its policies. Where do you see the entire Indo-Pacific discourse going from now onwards?
Actually, we can see the web, and we can think of the prismatic vision of the countries, the stakeholders of this region, that they are having the vision of geopolitical shift in this region. Secondly, the balance of power. These two are the concerns when these countries try to see this issue through the prism of these basics. So here we see that Indo-Pacific being the center of this region, and we find that Indo-Pacific, it has different definitions according to the countries. So being the part of India, I am trying to explain it right from the East African coastal region to the West Pacific area. So this Indo-Pacific is a connecting link, means it is having the connects of a wider range of the trade routes. And here the concerns of Japan, concerns of United States, concerns of ASEAN countries, and concerns of India, as well as China, they are very prominent concerns about their trade relations and about their economic expansion and their economic stability. But the more concern is of the peace and stability in this region, that is from the side of ASEAN and India, as well as other countries. Because if peace and stability is there, then definitely then only the trade will be possible in this area, in this route. So this is how Japan and other countries and other ASEAN countries, they are trying to resolve this issue through the multilateral talks, and they are also trying to develop their own bonds in this region, so that China can get its message, clear message, that they are not going to tolerate it, right? And when we think of India, because India is also the stakeholder of Indo-Pacific region, and it is trying to develop its peaceful relations with the other countries through its Act East policy and Indo-Pacific vision. it is trying to give a message. Earlier, India's role was a neutral role, but now we can see after 2020, when there is an issue of geopolitical threats or strategic threats, then definitely India started talking upon the issues very clearly, and it usually gives its messages through the forums, various forums like East Asia Summit, and India tried to clear its vision over this region, that no threat will be allowed and no threat will be tolerated in the coming next period. And when we achieve the presidency, or when we means uh, when we are moving through the G20 presidency, we are also trying to give some results of this region, because three stakeholders are there in G20, like India, Indonesia, and China are there. So this is how G20 has also a prominent role regarding South China Sea issues.
Before we go to the G20 thing, there is one more thing I'd like to talk about is the Indo-Pacific and the role India is playing and India has to play as a responsible global geopolitical actor, and the rising power that India is. When we talk about India's role vis-a-vis the collaboration and consensus, it has actually been able to strike with US, with Japan, with South Korea for the larger, understanding of how global maritime trade has to be conducted, free and fair Indo-Pacific, what most of the analysts and scholars call it. What's the role India has to play when it comes to Indo-Pacific, and how far have we been able we've been successful enough in delivering what is expected of us?
India being a prominent partner of this region, India as an emerging power as well, we can see, and it is gaining its position in the world wide view. So this is how India means people looking at India through various its responsibilities. Like G20 presidency itself is a very important responsibility, and in Indo-Pacific, right from the times when we started thinking of Act East policy, we developed our peaceful relations with the regional countries, regional groups, and through SCO, also through various other through ASEAN, and through East Asian summits, India has been working working upon the maintenance of peace and security in this region, and India is the main tailblazer of the anti-terror uh, activities, and India also has given its messages to the countries on various forums, that we are not going to tolerate terrorism, we are not going to tolerate any sort of hegemony, and we are also not going to tolerate the disturbances in the maritime security. So this is how India is these countries are also looking at India for about its role to be played in this region for the maintenance of peace and security, for the purpose of smooth trade relations, smooth maritime relations of this region, instead of escalating these conflicts into the war hats and into the armed conflicts. So India is trying to stop these sort of thoughts and these sort of activities by developing the bilateral and multilateral talks with the stakeholders.
When we talk about now the G20 presidency that we recently have had a dialogue at the Raisen, we saw most of the people, ministers and people who have come up as diplomats in taking part in the Raisen dialogues and debates and discussions. Also, we saw that there has been an entire new color given to the G20 groupings by India when we talk about the concept of Vasudeva Kutumbakam and other things. There has been a kind of lots of talk, revolving around this G20 and India's presidency, the role India has to play and is playing actually. Uh, how do you view G20 presidency of India, and how do you view things that will stem out of it?
Actually, G20 presidency is in the boom today, this year in 2023, and everybody is seeking some better future through this presidency, and not only the Indians, but the members, G20 members, not only the G20 members, but but the countries around India, they are also seeking a better future, because the theme which we see, that this is one earth, one family, and one future. So that one future can only be seen through the lines of the Indo-Pacific, or the lines of the India-ASEAN relations, or the lines of India and China relations, or the lines of India and United States relations. So this is how not only these superpowers and hegemonic powers are to be taken on the prime features, but some other countries which are the stakeholders and which are the neighboring countries of these regions, which we are not today speaking about SARC, but we are widely speaking about our Indo-Pacific region, or we are speaking about the India-ASEAN relations, because they and BIMSTEC and some other groups, COs. So these groups are the new horizons which are presenting a better future for the member countries. And under G20 presidency, India, through this concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, is trying to give results through the through the multilateral talks. Along with multilateral talks, it's a collective solution which can be provided for any issue, for any conflict. So when it is asked to India regarding the Indo-Pacific, regarding the South China conflicts, India always tried to push a collective solution of these issues. And we also have our own interest in South China Sea through the better examples of ONGC Videsh Limited, that is our explorer there, and some other areas, not only in Vietnam, some other areas of this region. So this is how India is also developing and extending its resourcefulness in this region, and its trade and maritime relations in this region. So this is how India is a very important stakeholder through G20 presidency, which was earlier established on the grounds of economic crisis in Southeast Asian countries. And now we can see that it is not only looking upon the economic crisis, or it is not only looking upon the economic stability issues, but along with economic stability, it wants to establish the peace. And anti-terrorism is again another issue. Climate protection is another issue, and maritime security is another. So the various tasks have been taken under G20 presidency, and India is planning to have around 200 meetings, more than 200 meetings in around 50 cities with various visions, like the areas of these meetings. We can take like a youth 20 and a business 20, and I would like to say that this along with the youth 20, business 20, and government's discussions, the villages are to be taken as the core, means as the core of the solutions. Because when we speak about back to the basics, and when we speak about the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, definitely the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam concept can be connected with the its own villages, and where self-reliance has been promoted by India since years, and this self-reliance concept should also be promoted in the member countries, because without self-reliance, no country or no group can survive for a longer period by seeking the financial aid from the other countries or other financial institutions.
And one last thing that I'd like to hear from you is that from the vantage point and from the time we speak from, when we talk about Indo-Pacific, when we talk about Quad, when we talk about ASEAN, when we talk about India's presidency at the G20, where do you, as an academician, as a researcher, or as a professor, see down the line, 10 years after? Where do you see India's role in the region and across?
Role of India can be seen a very active role, because as I have already mentioned, that India earlier used to be a very neutral partner or a very neutral member of this regional means regional issues. And in specifically in South China Sea, India had never been a very active spokesperson. But today we can see that after our strategic conflicts with China, India has been outspoken, and India is presenting itself as a very prominent speaker or a very prominent protester of any country's strategic conflicts with other countries and interference in the sovereign issues, in the sovereign matters of any country. So this is how South China, either we take South China Sea, or we can take any other inland issues. These are basically the attacks on sovereign sovereign power of any country and its own right to, or the freedom of trade and freedom of expression of any country in with other countries, other members. So this is how India has always been a stakeholder or a representative of those countries which are underdeveloped and which are developing. And when there is any hegemonic role is aggressive, then definitely its direct impact is on the developing countries. And in this region, we can see that Indo-Pacific is a wider, it shows you a wider picture, having the members, developed members, as well as the developing members, as well as underdeveloped members. So India, being the representative of this region, is trying to provide a better and secure, peaceful and secure environment for the member nations.